Hello, I'm Paddy Madden. I'm here to talk about fruits and seeds in October. Today I'll be talking about the different types of fruits. I'll be talking about dispersal of seeds and also sowing seeds in October. We have to look at, first of all, the provenance of a fruit. It starts, of course, with a flower that has been pollinated by bees, by the wind. This is the part of the flower that develops into the fruit, which is the ovary, and here we have the petals here which attract pollinating insects, either by colour or by smell. When they arrive, they follow the bee guidelines down to the source of nectar, and in the process pollen falls on them, which they bring to the next flower of a similar type, falls on the stigma, which if only one grain of pollen is needed to send a tube down to the stigma to fertilize the ovary, which will turn into a fruit. We start off with simple berries here first. We have blueberries, which are very nutritious and excellent for your health, which is succulent fruit or fleshy fruit, which is nice and juicy, which people or animals eat and then disperse the seed either in droppings or accidentally. We have the elderberry, which is common at this time of the year, very attractive to many types of birds and attracted to the juicy flesh. The berry goes through their system, the seed goes through their system when they eat the berry, and then they drop it in the dropping somewhere, which propagates the plant. Humans also, of course, use elderberries to make different types of drink at this time of the year. Then the tomato is a simple fruit. It's a fruit because it has seeds in the middle. You eat the flesh and throw away the seeds. So that is why it is a fruit. Many people call it a vegetable, but a vegetable really is the stem of a plant or the leaf or the root, not the seeds. Other berries that we get at this time of the year, botanically they're not berries, but for common language they're called berries, so we'll use the term berries to describe them. Here we have the berries of the rowan tree. These fruits here have seeds in the middle, and birds especially are attracted to red, but they eat the nice juicy flesh, and then the seed goes through their digestive systems and they drop it in droppings, which propagates the lovely rowan tree. Blackberries, common at this time of the year. There are many little tiny berries here with little seeds in the middle, which are propagated both by animals and by humans. Here we have the haws, which again are red, which are attractive to birds, and they have a little seed in the middle, which again goes through the digestive system and is dropped miles away from the parent plant to produce new hawthorn trees. Apples and pears are fruits, succulent fruits, called pomes, P-O-M-E. They are very fleshy and edible. They have a core in the centre which holds the seeds. And we have citrus fruits, which are oranges and lemons. Again, they're divided into segments or partitions within the fruit itself. They have a tough skin on the outside, but the seeds are in the middle. Next we have succulent fruits with hard seeds in the centre of the fruit. For example, the sloe, which comes from the blackthorn, not the hawthorn. The haws come from the hawthorn and the sloes come from the blackthorn. So these, if you eat them, and they're eaten by animals and birds, you will see a hard seed in the centre that actually can propagate the plant. So these are called drupes, by the way, fruits with a stony seed in the centre. Believe it or not, a cucumber is a type of fruit. Many people might call it a vegetable, but again, if you look closely, it has seeds in the centre and it's surrounded by flesh. These technically are not berries, but we'll consider them as berries for this presentation. These are the hips of the wild rose, which are common at this time of the year, eaten by a lot of birds and animals. And again, the little seeds in the centre have hairs on them, tiny little hairs on them, so they're called itchy backs. And in the old days, children in school used to break these open and just pass them down the backs of other children as a prank. So these itchy backs come here from the hips of the rose. This one, an imported fruit which you can see on the hedgerows at this time of the year. These are snowberries which come from America. Again, if you open them, you'll find the seeds in the centre. They were brought into Ireland and England really to provide cover in woodland areas for game birds. And then we have another fruit here. Again, it looks like a berry. We'll call it a berry because it's commonly called a berry, but again, a very, very poisonous one. This is the yew, and this is called an arrel, which has got a seed in it, which is deadly poisonous. But squirrels, believe it or not, are able to eat the juicy section and discard the seed, and so are birds. So not to be touched, but certainly a beautiful fruit, the arrel on the yew. And this, believe it or not, is a berry and it belongs to the berry family of fruits. It has seeds in the centre, and a lot of people might not think that. So that sums up there a summary of the succulent fruits that you find in autumn.
The first PowerPoint presentation is about types of fruit, dry and succulent fruits. A fruit develops from the ovary of a plant, and the common flower parts are bees search flowers for nectar to make honey and pollen to feed their grubs. A pollen grain sends a tube down to the ovary to fertilize it. When this happens, a fruit with seeds develops. Pollen grains on the stigma. Dry, succulent fruits. Dry fruits with wings are called samarats. The seeds of the silver birch have two wings to help the wind to spread them around. grains are the dry fruit of cereal crops such as wheat, oats, maize, barley and rice. Nuts are dry fruits also, where a hard shell covers the seed. Sometimes the shell is covered by a husk. Succulent or juicy fruits are the opposite of dry fruits. Berries are succulent fruits. A drupe is a juicy fruit which contains one seed surrounded by a hard coat. Strawberries, raspberries and blackberries are clusters of many tiny fruits called drupelets. These are juicy fruits with a tough core which contain the seeds. The citrus fruit has a tough outer leathery skin, and the centre is divided into partitions. These are fruits with thick skins or rinds with seeds in the middle. They are juicy and watery. There are also poisonous fruits to be aware of.
Following on from our discussion of succulent and dry fruits, I'm going to talk now about seed dispersal in October. So there are 4 ways of dispersing the fruit and the seeds. 1 is by animals, 2 by the wind, 3 by explosion or bursting, and 4 by water. We'll take the animal dispersal of seed first. Sometimes these have attractive red colours which birds are attracted to. They eat the fleshy part of the fruit, and then the seed goes through their digestive system and ends up miles away, much to the satisfaction of the parent plant. Then most of these, indeed all of them, I think would be right in saying that are juicy, to attract animals to eat them and to disperse the seeds in their droppings. Then we have wind dispersal, and quite a lot of these have wings on them, as we have talked about previously. We have the maple there with the samaras. You can see the wings that carry the fruit and the seed miles away from the parent plant. We have the ash keys here which spin around in the wind, and then we have an unusual one here which isn't a wing, but it is the lime tree, which has a kind of a wing here called a bract, which falls off, and the wind blows the fruit away with the seed within, miles away from the parent plant. And then those winged seeds, we had the silver birch, which we talked about earlier. They've got these capsules with 2 wings in them. Then one of the ways of spreading seeds by wind here is through sensor movement, what they call sensor movement. You have fruits like the poppies here, which shake in the wind, and little holes on the top here open when it's ripe, and the little seeds then are scattered around when they shake in the wind. Those are capsules spread by shaking. Then the next type of dispersal we have here is bursting or explosion. Here we have pods, for example, on the broom, which you can find growing in gardens and also in the wild. Then we were talking earlier about vetches of different types here, which dry in the sun and then split along two seams and just burst open, and the seeds are scattered far and wide. And then we have dispersal by water. These seeds on, for example, the cone-like fruit here of the alder, which turns brown at this time of the year, the tiny little seeds have tiny little corks on them, which are carried away in the water. So that's just one example of them. We have a PowerPoint showing you all about seed dispersal in October.
The second PowerPoint presentation is seed dispersal, the why and the how. So plants use various ways of spreading their seeds far and wide from themselves. Some plants produce fruits with one seed inside the fruit. An ash has a fruit with one seed. The silver birch has two wings to carry away the fruit with its seed. The lime tree produces fruit that are roundish with a wing attached to 2, 3 or 4 of them. A dandelion seed is carried away on a parachute. Poppy seeds are held in a fruit called a capsule. When the seeds are ripe, little holes appear all around the top of the capsule. Birds are attracted to the colour red. The fruits of the rowan tree, holly and hawthorn are red. Some plants produce fruits with hooks on them. They get stuck in the fur and hair of animals. This plant is sometimes called robin run the hedge. Its tiny hooks, fruit sticks onto the fur and wool of animals. Squirrels and jays like to eat hazelnuts and acorns. They hide them in the ground and sometimes forget where they have buried them. When gorse pods split open, they make a popping noise and seeds are thrown a few meters from the parent plant. Wild vetches belong to the pea family. Alder and willow trees like to grow near water. They use the water to disperse their seeds.
October is a good month to propagate oaks from acorns. You will need the following: clean milk carton with the top cut off and holes in the bottom. A seed compost made by mixing peat-free compost and horticultural sand 50-50. Grit or chippings to put at the bottom of the carton for draining. The nail scissors, clear plastic bag with holes for ventilation and an elastic band. Place about 2.5 centimeters of chipping at the bottom of the carton. Fill to within 2.5 centimeters of the top of the carton and tamp down gently with the back of the hand. Place the acorns, which have been wrapped in moss to keep them moist, into water to test for viability. If they sink, they are viable. If they float, they will not germinate. Insert an acorn to a depth of twice its length, pointy end upwards, and cover with compost. Water and cover with a perforated plastic bag and tie with an elastic band. A dated label on the carton and then leave it in a shady place until the spring when the acorn will germinate.
You have watched how to grow acorns and chestnuts in the classroom. Another nice activity at this time of the year is to grow plants from pips of the lemons, for example, oranges and apples. Remove the pips, and what you do then is you make up some seed compost here like this. It's made up of half horticultural sand and half peat-free compost, and dampen it. Label here with lemon, apple or orange. And you take your pip and you soak it in water for a couple of days, just to soften them and to speed up the germination. Then place your pips into the damp seed compost here. 2 or 3 will do. Then seal it up like that. Place it in a warm place, like a hot press, or maybe in a box, dark box, covered near a radiator. Make sure it's in the dark for about 3 weeks. Then take it out, leave it on the warm windowsill, and when you see 3 leaves, remove it gently, remove the plant gently, put it into a tiny little pot of potting compost and leave it in a warm place. This is one that I did earlier myself. It's a lemon, tiny lemon growing, and I use a half a milk carton, put some holes in the bottom, some sand for drainage, peat-free compost, and you can see a little lemon tree is beginning to grow, and put a label on it as well.
Growing plants from pips. Soak the pips in a container of water for 2 days to soften them. Get a Ziploc bag and fill it with seed compost. Place 2 or 3 pips from the same fruit in the damp compost and seal the bag. Remove the bag from the dark, warm place and leave it on a sunny windowsill indoors. When 3 leaves can be seen, remove the pips and plant them separately in peat-free compost. Place the pot trays under the carton to collect excess water.
Sometimes teachers can be wondering what fruit to grow in the school garden. One of them is blueberry, especially the late fruiting one that I have here. This one here is called Vaccinium blueberry blue drop, and it has these tiny little blueberries on them, as you can see here, teardrop shaped, tiny little ones, but delicious sweet. And again, there's another one here with a different type of blueberry on it. It's Vaccinium corymbosum, which I have here. Again, delicious sweet, very nutritious, very simple to grow. Just make sure you have ericaceous compost. You can buy that in a garden centre, because these are acid loving plants. Give them a feed in the spring of a general purpose fertiliser, and when you see the roots emerging from the pot, repot them into a slightly bigger pot than the one that they were in. Another fruit bush to grow in the school garden is the Thornless Blackberry. The Thornless Blackberry. It has no thorns on it whatsoever, so it's quite safe to grow with children around. And again, grow it in a pot in a sunny place like the blueberry. So the pot is just slightly bigger than the root ball. In this case, it's 30 centimetres in diameter, and I fill it with John Innes number 3 compost. That's a very rich compost, because these flowers and fruit, they need the rich compost to feed them, so to develop the fruits. As you can see, the flowers have been pollinated by bees, so it's excellent as a pollinator friendly plant, and they are now beginning to turn into the fruits, the little blackberries here, which are edible and can be collected and eaten, even if you have no blackberry bushes growing in your hedgerows in your school grounds. If you're looking for another fruit that fruits in autumn, you can look at the autumn fruiting raspberry. The normal raspberries fruit in the summertime. The autumn one fruits in September and early October. Now we'll just look at the lovely raspberries coming out this time of the year. Beautiful and succulent and lovely tweed. So we have quite a few here. And again, the compost I use is a rich one, John Innes number 3. And when these are in flower, and like the blackberries as well, and the blueberries, it's a good idea to feed them once a week with potassium, with a potassium fertilizer like Tomerite, which you give to tomatoes. It just boosts flower production and consequently fruit production. Two useful resources for fruits and seeds which you could use is this one for sowing seeds of different wild fruits that we find in Ireland. It's called Our Trees, a guide to growing Ireland's native trees in celebration of a new millennium. This can be downloaded online. Another good resource is this one, which is a fruit and seeds dial. So you have a fruit here, for example, you twist around the dial like this, and then when it lands on this, you have the dog rose here with the hips on it, and then this tells you these are the blackthorn here with the sloes on it, and then this tells you this is a hawthorn here with haws on it, and this can be downloaded from www.thewoodlandtrust.org.uk. We have covered our topic of nature for October. We look forward to seeing you in November when we will be covering decomposition, decomposers, fungi, making compost and leaf mould. Thank you.